What's up, guys? Drake here. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another edition of Locked On Seminoles and making us your first listen each and every single day. And today, for the trio, it's just me, but we have a very special guest for you guys today. We have Mr. Sam Moore of the Listen Up podcast and also FSU Twitter Hall of Famer with his viral Twitter spaces regarding the Travis Hunter situation back on early signing day. And we're glad to have him on as a guest for our State of the FSUnion series. Today, we discuss for part one of this interview how he feels for Mike Norvell about Mike Norvell heading into year three. We discuss his opinions on transfer wide receivers, how maybe they're more than just wide receivers. And also we discuss a little bit of defense to kind of cap off today's episode. And then we finish that up with some defense and personal talk in part two for tomorrow. But folks, I'm not going to hold you back any further. And thank you all so much for love and support. And here's the interview with Mr. Sam Moore of the Listen Up podcast. Drake, hit it, baby.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Drake. I'm Ryan Solo today, but I am not alone. I am here with Mr. Sam Moore of More at More Life on Twitter, and also of the Listen Up podcast. Sam, what's going on, my guy?
Not a whole lot, man. How you doing today?
I'm chilling, man. Just, vibing. It's, I think we're recording this on Wednesday. We'll be dropping this probably a week from now. I'm super excited for you to be on here for the State of the FSUnion, basically where we have different, content creators from around the FSU state to see how everyone's feeling about, FSU football. So let's start right there. After this past 2021 season, I kind of want to gauge. I know people follow you on Twitter, but it's kind of funny how the Twitter you and what I hear in the podcast are a little bit different. I'm not going to lie. So I kind of want to see how you're feeling right now about the State of the football program.
Yes, Twitter's a weird place because people gravitate more to the negative things and the things they can disagree with than actual everything that you say. So my negative stuff just pops up all the time for people, I guess. But I was let down mostly by the special teams this year. I think that was the part that I went into the season thinking that special teams would be good. I thought the offense would take another step. I thought the defense was a lot better than I originally thought it was going to be coming into the season. So I'll give them credit for the defense being better. Jermaine Johnson was excellent. That was a great find in the portal. But I got to be honest, the special teams, because, Norvell's a special teams guy, and I really thought that was going to be a vital part of the team, and it really was bad. So hopefully he gets that fixed going into year three.
I mean, hopefully, man. I know it's him and John who just right now out there. But you brought up, I think, basically, I kind of want to ask, basically, your expectations going into the year. Like, overall, not schematically said, I know a lot of people were, I know the Nolecast was out there saying 6-6. I'm not going to lie to you. I was one of the people gassing us up to 8 wins. I thought that we could do that. And in my personal opinion, some of the games across the year, I'm like, those are some very winnable games. Like, if you look over at the entire of the season. So I kind of want to see, like, what were you expecting from FSU football as a whole going into last year?
I thought 6-6 was about where they was going to be at, to be honest with you. I thought they would win a lot of games early. Like, I actually picked them to beat Notre Dame the first game. If you go back, if you go back to listen to the Listen Up podcast, I was beating the drum that they would beat Notre Dame the first game because I knew Notre Dame was replacing so many offensive linemen that it was no way they was going to be in sync for that game. And they almost did beat them. They got off to an ugly start, a start I really didn't expect for them to have. So I did have them at 6-6. They fell below at 5-7. And I mean, one game off, that's not too bad, I guess. But I did expect them to make a bowl.
So now that year 2 is done, or year 1, depending on who you ask, because year 0 was the first year of Mike Norvell. Like, how was your feelings right now? Mike Norvell changed from when he was hired to where you are now.
It's been a disaster. It's crazy. Like that's typical, right? That is my Twitter handle, right?
That was it. That's your bread and butter, man. That's
It's been a disaster, man, because I think there's been a few things, right? I thought after his first year, I thought that was a prime opportunity to look at the staff, to make the changes that you needed to make the adjustment that you needed to make, because you can't say that, well, we didn't recruit well in year 2 because we didn't have relationships. Well, that's what your staff is for. That's why you hire guys with relationships. that only seemed like it was a problem at Florida State, not a problem with Michigan State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and some of those teams. Um, he didn't do a good job evaluating the staff within that crisis that he was having in the first year. I think he went into thinking it was a year zero. And I think as a football coach in modern football with mega millions on the line, every day you have to get better. They did not get better the first year, right? And you saw that roll into the second year. In the second year, they got a little better, but it wasn't enough to push them to being competitive against a down Florida team with no coaches. Um, it wasn't enough for them not to get blowed out by Wake Forest. It wasn't enough for them to get beat by Jackson State. And in the recruiting class, you was hoping to get a big bump in recruiting because you thought, well, we'll go 6 games, be in every game, win 6 or 7 games, and we'll keep our recruiting class. And when I say keeping the recruiting class, I mean the top guys in that class, the Travis Hunters of the world, a couple other guys, Ball, big time offensive tackle that you really could have used. He'd have been an instant day one guy that would have been helping you in practice, and probably by game 4, game 5, he'd have been probably playing. And you lost those guys because of the bad start. So it's been a disaster. I think a lot of other fans and media people will say we're making progress. Well, everybody's making progress. Is your progress more, or are you doing more than the teams around you, the NC States, the Kentuckys, the Tennessees, the teams that you got to start, Auburn, the teams you got to start beating to get to the next level with the Georgias and Alabamas? I mean, I don't think we've got into their neighborhood yet.
I mean, but also because I'm right there with you. Like I when we hire Mike Norvell, I'd be lying to you if I was excited about the hire. Mainly because I think we were. I mean, me and you have talked off, on Twitter, off camera,
Mhm.
about how we really want, other coaches like Mel Tucker, David Randall were 2 names that I pointed out to you that could have been great hires. But like, if you look at the situation that Norvell inherited, which was not, the particularly best situation, right?
Right.
So basically, the bar, I'm on Locked on ACC. I think Candace Cooper very well. She always has a saying, the bar is in hell. So
Mhm.
basically, like when he took over, the bar was very, very low. And so it's kind of like, isn't somewhat like unfair to kind of put the situation, basically, if you want to continue to compete with Alabama and Georgia when he barely has ACC quality, like ACC quality roster, on his team?
Yeah, yeah. It's unfair to put him on that bar. I'm not necessarily putting him on that bar as far as Alabama, Georgia. But I mean, we're not currently. I don't think we would be the 8th, the 7th best team in the SEC right now. We're not the 5th or 6th best team in the ACC right now. It is his job to accrue talent. That is his job. That's a college football coach is the GM of the team. Kirby Smart may not be the greatest football coach, X and O in game management, but he might be the number 2 GM in college football right now, and that matters. And do I think Norvell schematically is a good football coach? X and O's offense, motivating. I think he is. I really do. I think he is a good coach when it comes to that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But when it comes to accruing talent in this region, he's not put enough on the team, because you can't keep using the excuse where we got to get better players, because it's your job to get better players. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. Yeah, that's fair. And one of the big things I was talking about, where it's like if you looked at the original staff that he had, there was very few Florida ties, and basically how we've always had some of our best players are from the South Florida area. You look at Derwin James from Polk County, you look at Dalvin Cook, Devontae Freeman from Miami Central, like down here. So, but are you able to kind of because I know we're in like a new era of college football where we have the early signing period, but also we have the transfer portal is more relevant than ever, right?
Right.
And I know that I think James Coleman was on your Twitter space earlier this week. We were saying like the transfers are already always been happening.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to ask, like, if he's not, I know he's not very great at the high school recruiting, but don't you think he kind of makes up for that with actually his high school, with his transfer portal kind of proficiencies?
Well, I think there's a difference when you get a high school guy like let's say you get Derwin James, right?
Yeah.
And he, by midway through the first year, him or Davin Cook, midway through their first year, they start to contribute to the team. And
Mhm.
then by then you got a half a year, their second year, their third year. So you're getting 3 years of pure production from a player out of the high school ranks.
Yeah.
With these transfers, you're really hoping they hit, right? And then you get forced into a situation like we saw at Mackenzie Milton, where I felt like the staff felt like they was forced to play him when he really wasn't the better quarterback. And I think a lot of people knew he wasn't a better quarterback, right? And that caused you to lose a couple games because you made promises to guys. And I think that becomes a problem. I think they also made promises to other guys on the team that they will play certain positions because they brought transfers in. But then the better position is for guys to play another position, but you made promises to this transfer. And it just kind of messed up the cohesion of a team. The better teams pick their spots with transfers. They got one guy here, one guy there, one guy here. With Florida State, we're bringing in so many and we're trying to say, let's just make it work. I think that's kind of tough, you know?
What's up, guys? Drake here. Sorry to pull you guys away from the great interview sit down with Mr. Sam Moore of the Listen Up podcast for State of the FSUnion, but we here at Locked On Seminoles would be remiss if we didn't talk about friends over at betonline.net. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues to march through the playoffs right to the Super Bowl in just a few short days. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And sign up today by using promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get a 50% bonus on your first deposit when you sign up. Once again, that promo code is LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as always, folks, tails never fails, and fade Dave and take the Bengals +4. Now back to the interview with Sam Moore from the Listen Up podcast. Yeah, I mean, like the one thing that we kind of, and I like how you kind of brought that up, because one of the big questions right now that we have across the fan base is, what is FSU doing right now in the transfer portal and when it comes in regards to the quarterback position? Now, one of the big things that we saw was the evolution of Jordan Travis,
Right.
basically saying, from year he was mainly a runner in year one under Mike Norvell, and this year you saw flashes of him being a potentially good passer. But I think a lot of people, will like to agree that we kind of want some sort of competition at the QB position, because we feel that with a better QB under center, we could be like we can probably gain a win or two, in the win-loss column, right?
Right.
So I kind of want to get your thoughts on how basically he's attacked the portal when it comes to not going for a QB, or not seeming like not going for a QB, and maybe going to grab a running back or grabbing, the 4 to 5 wide receiver that he's getting. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on how he's tackled that sort of.
I've been on record saying this. I thought Jordan Travis was the best quarterback going into the season last year. He was severely underrated by most of the fan base going into the season last year, right?
Yeah.
So now we've done this thing where he was so underrated last year. Coming out of the season, now we are overrating what Jordan Travis really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am of the opinion, right? When you don't make a bowl game for 2 years and you've averaged 4 wins per season, nobody should be guaranteed anything within that program because nobody's living up to the standard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to have an honest conversation with everybody in that room where you got to say, hey, man, we got to get better football players in here, because when I brought you guys here, I told y'all we're going to be successful, okay? The only way I can make sure everybody in this room is successful is by putting successful people in here, bringing more successful people in here so we can be successful. You have to get your team to buy into the idea that I'm going to bring guys in here. It's y'all job to beat them out and to make this team better and to buy into the team. They need another quarterback, point blank period. They need another quarterback. Not that you can't trust Jordan Travis. I think you can. I think he's going to fight. He's going to give you everything he got. But he does get hurt. And if he gets hurt for 3 weeks, do we just say, oh, well, that's 3 losses and just kick out, put our hands in the air and say, that what can you do? You just can't. You can't run a football program like that. That's poor roster management. That's poor player development, because you don't have a good quality quarterback. Now the guys can't develop on the field good enough because they playing behind bad quarterback play. So you got to bring another quarterback in. I don't know what they're waiting on, to be honest with you, because I think you could have had this conversation after the season. Jordan, you went out against Florida and we was dead in the water. You come back, the game's practically over. We can't have this. They got to sell it the right way.
I mean, yeah, but also you can point to like how the offensive line, there were times last year where if Robert Scott goes down, Maurice Smith, isn't able to snap the ball properly, where you kind of can't have, the quarterback that you want because the offensive line is just so mediocre to bad. So
Right.
it's kind of like what quarterback would want to come here and essentially kind of be like a crash dummy at times.
Yeah, but at the same time though, you've brought in offensive linemen to help out with this problem.
Hmm.
You brought in running backs, you brought in wide receivers. Jordan Travis should be okay with you bringing in a quarterback because everybody around you is having to compete for their job. You should have to compete. You should have to compete too and show your team you're in the same fight they are in. So I think this this idea that that Jordan Travis is safe or he's old to start in position, that's not how you get better. You don't get better as a pro. I don't think Nick Saban, Kirby are telling people your position is safe. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a game recognized game every week. Like, yo, you're being outplayed this week, and you're probably not going to play. And that's how you breed competition and make your program better.
I mean, that's true. And like one of the things that we've kind of I mean, I talked about it a lot in Mike Norvell's first season where I was kind of surprised that he didn't go for a transfer quarterback then and grab
Right.
someone because James Blackman. Because I mean, you and I both, I think everyone here, Max, my co-host, Dave, our co-host here too, that we saw James Blackman play for several years and nothing, the kid's probably as great as he is. He's just not that good at being a Power 5 quarterback.
Right.
So it's kind of like understanding that it's a troubling pattern that I don't know if Norvell kind of if Norvell knows how to manage the QB room, whether
Yeah.
it be bringing in a transfer, then also with the Chuba Purdy, how he's gone, he's at Nebraska now. Now we have 3 scholarship QBs right now on campus. So do you kind of worry about how he typically does not know how to manage the QB room?
I think managing that room, man, it does take a special coach. Every coach can't do it well. Nick Saban kind of has it down pat. Lincoln Riley kind of does a good job with it. Other than that, I can't think of any other coach. I mean, I watched Mark Stoops fumble all over himself year after year trying to find a quarterback. He finally got a guy this year. And when we see what Kirby did this year, he basically played a walk on because it is what it is. But I think it's tough. It's tough when the fans look at a more talented guy, but then the coach look at how the team responds, and that's it's different, man. I think it's hard to see the tree in the forest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
I think it's tough. I don't want to say he's doing a bad job managing it because I think James Blackman was a good player in practice. I think he was. I think he's a good kid. I think George Travis is a good kid. And I think when you see people working their tails off in practice, you just assume, well, I gotta play the better practice player. And that better practice player may not be better in the games. So, it's tough. It's tough. But you have to build a team where it's not so quarterback dependent also. That's really important.
Nah, that is really important. That kind of goes to, I guess, the next point I kind of want to make with the offense, and then we'll go over to defense because I know that's the kind of the one of the few bright spots from last year.
Yeah.
We see that Mike has taken about, I think, 4 wide receiver options now out of the portal. We got Deuce Spann, Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, and there's one more, Winston Wright Jr. from West Virginia.
Mhm.
I kind of want to ask you, like, with this, what does that kind of tell you that we're taking this many options, at skill positions, and also get Trey Benson, the running back from Oregon?
Actually, I don't think it says as much about the offense as it does about the special teams.
Okay,
I think I was talking to I had Kenny Shaw on my podcast, and I was asking him about punt return because our punt return was horrible. It was terrible.
awful.
And he was like, I was like, well, the guys won't catch the ball. And I was really complaining to him about it. And he made a really interesting point. He said I had never returned punts in high school. He said, so I got to college and they made me return punts. And I said, well, how do you get confidence to do something? Because that seemed like the most scariest job in the world. And he said that you got to remember, my gunners was Carlos Williams and Jalen Ramsey. So he was like, I had 2 of the most athletic, big, tall, strong guys on the outside of my gunners. So I knew they was going to block it up. And he was like, sometimes having good gunners that's blocking for you makes all of the world of the difference for the punt returner and gives the punt returner a lot of confidence. So I do think having the wide receivers that they got, I think it says more about the special teams and what it's going to bring to the special teams. Pittman
Okay,
catching the ball in punt return. I think Johnny Wilson, somebody who probably can get out there and block on the special teams.
I do
I
too.
think they'll add value. I think they would definitely add value to the wide receiver room. I don't personally think the wide receiver room is as bad as everybody think it is. That's my opinion. I think McClain is going to be a good player. It's going to take him time. I think they needed to actually spotlight him more last year, going into the end of the year than what they did. Maybe not throw all these go routes to 5'7" guys. Maybe give it to the 6'4". you know, you
I'm actually
know,
gonna love that, by the way.
just that's something I would do. You know what I'm saying? But I just think that the wide receiver room wasn't as bad, but I think the special team was bad. And if you can find tall, physical, fast guys, that adds to your special teams as gunners and guys that return punts and kick returns, in my opinion.
That's interesting because I actually haven't heard that because we've mainly been talking about Winston Ryan that go to for the slaughter. You hear about Johnny Wilson because he has. I mean, everyone's seen that video like 10,000 times where he just catches the ball. I know we're like way up here at
Yeah.
6'7", and then Micah Pittman, who his dad was Michael Pittman, and his brother is killing in the NFL. So it's like you heard so much about how big they are for the offense as a whole because Keyshawn Helton, great kid, good
Mhm.
wide receiver, but he definitely shouldn't be your wide receiver one. Malik McClain, while you were saying 6'4", you can't teach that. He's still a very, very young kid, and you kind of saw
Right.
that with the Jacksonville State game. So
Right.
it is interesting kind of how you point out what their access to special teams overall.
Yeah, I think that's where you can see the immediate impact of these kids. I don't. So the wide receiver room is interesting because I don't think Pittman's that good as a wide receiver. Um, I think he's a good punt returner. Um, I don't think he's a good wide receiver though. I just don't. Winston Wright, I think is a good wide receiver. Is he a volume pass catcher though? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I think he's kind of more of a gadget guy. Johnny Wilson, I don't know. I mean, not a lot of production. He's at Arizona State, but in his defense, that quarterback at Arizona State is terrible. I watched him play. He's horrible.
Jaden,
So
I thought he was gonna be so good too after his
yeah,
first year. I love Jaden Daniels too.
and
Damn it.
he fast. I mean, he runs that I can see why Willie wanted him so bad because he runs that zone read to perfection.
Oh,
But
it's awesome.
if you ask him to throw the football, it is going into the ground. So, but yeah. So I mean, we got to see how they look and how they develop. But then you talk about developing. Well, the coach we've had developing wide receivers hasn't developed a wide receiver in 3 years.
Yeah, especially, he hasn't developed one here, and you could say maybe 5 or 6 years because of his tenure in Miami too.
Yeah,
Look at Mike Harley and Mark Pope.
yeah,
They basically, I think both of them are gone. I think Mark Pope actually changed to DB and then transferred out. So it's
yeah. He at
interesting to see like, how they
JSU.
are.
He's at JSU with
Yeah,
Dion.
he's
Yeah,
a D. Everyone's going to Dion now. He's freaking Shamar James gonna do the same damn thing.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm not gonna lie. I ain't gonna have some I believe shirts and hats on real soon, man. Just let you know.
What's up?
I'm gonna have some I believe shirts and hats on real soon. It's coming.
Yeah, I think 2 years from now, we're all people wear I believe shirts. We're gonna see that press conference. I might even buy myself that goat chain too that he has on real quick. Yeah, I mean with the wide receivers, yeah, I think that part of that's also with QB play, and that's something that we all talk. I mean, we've talked about with like Jason Daniels also in the portal, but I'm actually very excited to see kind of how they kind of are implemented into the offense because I love Winston Rise in option one. I'm a little higher than Micah Pittman on most people because I do think that the skills are there. But you're right. I think every one of them, except for Winston Wright Jr., doesn't have the production to kind of back up the hype that some of us are giving them.
Right.
And then moving from offense to defense, that's the one thing that like actually we can hang our hat on. Kind of as a successful season, right? You had
Right.
Jermaine Johnson playing amazing. You had Kier Thomas too as well, just being out of nowhere. Fabian Lovett, Robert Cooper. I mean, most of them come back, and then we add Jared Verse too now for next season. I kind of want to get your thoughts as basically Adam Fuller. A lot of people gets a lot of hate. He really does.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably on the forefront there. You should see my Twitter. So with the defense as a whole, what did you see over the season that you liked, and kind of how do you feel about them going in 2022?
So this is gonna be negative, but I would have still made a change at defensive coordinator.
Oh, same here, man. You have no idea.
I still would have made
It
a
ain't
change
just you.
Yeah, I would have still made a change at defensive coordinator. I still believe that Jacksonville State game was really unforgivable. That first half of Louisville, unforgivable. I mean, the fact that Notre Dame put a whole new offense together and damn near hung 40 on you, I felt was pretty unforgivable also. They did play better down the stretch though, right? Jamie Robinson is going to be huge coming back. They need to coach up the back end better though. There's talent in the back end. This thing that the fan base keeps saying, well, we need better players on defense and in the secondary. I just don't believe it's true. I just do not believe that's true. I think Travis Jay is a good football player. I thought Akeem Dent was a good football player. They was clowning him last year, and by the end of the following year, he was a good football player. They're good football players. They need to be coached up better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think but the one thing I do feel, even though we did lose Jermaine Johnson, which that is a big loss, him and Kier Thomas, huge losses. But I do think the emergence of Deloach and what you're going to get out of Tatum Bethune, I think is going to supplement and make the defense very, very solid. But I do still worry about the back end, though. I really do. So we'll see. The
Is that
elevated
because
Raiders.
is that because they're like younger? Because I know we had Sidney Williams back there. You know, Renardo Greenland's never healthy, but he's probably one of the better ones we have. Like, why is that you
I
worry about
thought
the back
Sidney
end
was
so much?
pretty good before he got hurt. They got to find a way to get something out of Travis Jay. You have to take talented guys with talented reputations and get them to play to their star ranking. That helps you in recruiting. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? you got to make that happen. They're not that young though, right? Like Cooper, I mean, it's not crazy to get a Florida 4-star DB and he started in the secondary and a good player for you for 3 years.
No, I mean
That
I mean,
happens. That
no,
happens.
that happens more often than not. That's kind of want to ask with like Travis J. Like, you know, trust me, like our co-host Dave, he's been a Travis J like stand since day one. And to me, I'm at the point now where it's like you're about to get passed up by Marin Cooper.
Yeah.
Kevin Knowles gonna take your spot too. I was not particularly fond of you at safety. I like Jamie back there better. When Renardo is healthy, I like him out there all the time. So with Travis J, to me, it's at the point where it's like it seems like to me that they're getting passed up, and now we just have some kids in the back end that we don't know whether to keep them there or maybe potentially as a wide receiver, or maybe, just maybe, it might be time for some kids to kind of see the writing on the wall.
I think we have to look at the evaluations of what Harlan Barnett thought of some of these DBs, right? So he
Yeah.
thought Akeem Dent was a safety.
Yeah.
It
I
proved
forgot
out
about
that
him. Damn.
it proved out that Akeem Dent was a safety. You
Mhm.
know, he's not a cornerback.
No.
Travis J, in my opinion, is a safety. He's
Mhm.
a in the box safety. He is not a cover single high safety. He's an in the box safety. And I think that they have to take the scheme and kind of twist it and make it to work with the skill guys that they have, in my opinion. I don't think Travis Jay is a bad football player. I think he's been put in some bad situations. He was the best punt returner as far as catching the football, but for some reason he got in the doghouse and we wouldn't even let him go do that. So we just gave up 100 yards of field position every game. That's bad coaching. You know, we got to be better than that. You know, so I think I think the back end need to be coached up better. I think the linebacker play I thought the linebacker play was the best linebacker play we had in almost 4 or 5 years. It was really good linebacker play last year. Deloach was excellent last year. DJ London probably shouldn't be playing linebacker at this level. You know, I
He should
think
play fullback, man. He's got the frame for that,
he's
man.
definitely a fullback. I mean, maybe an NFL fullback too, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, maybe an NFL fullback. Hey, the 49ers are drafting.
And that just wraps up our first part of our two-part interview with Mr. Sam Moore of the Listen Up podcast. Folks, tune in tomorrow for part 2 of our interview with him for the State of the FSUnion series. Like I always said, it was a fun interview with Sam, and it was kind of a breath of fresh air and kind of a great different perspective on how the FSU fan base feels about Mike Norvell. And as always, I highly recommend going and check out his podcast as well, because he does some good work out there. He just sat down with Locked On ACC host Candace Cooper, and it was a fun time. And you know what? I'm not going to hold you guys back for any further for this. We'll see you tomorrow for part 2. And as always, take care, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles.